maybe I need to get my mind moving in a different direction. So rather than thinking, okay, I have this issue or I have a problem, what if I keep saying to myself, actually, you're overcoming it. We're going to make it even better.
"83% of Americans identify as not very happy, which can hold you back and negatively affect your relationships and your business. On this podcast, we discuss the proven steps to happiness so you can restore balance and rekindle your joy.
Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Man, am I excited for these. This is going to be our first ever two-part series because there's so much great information. You are not going to want to miss this episode and the next episode with Katharine Loucaidou. How are you today, Katharine?
I am awesome. Thank you so much. I am excited to be here, and I'm excited to just share and chat with you about mindset and making everything better.
I mean, your story is pretty mind-boggling. We talked a little bit before the show. Oh my gosh. So you're not only your story, but what you've done with your story. So as we always do, let's jump right in. Can you share with us your initial experiences with these serious health issues that you had? You can give the list, but including heart disease and cancer, and what led you to seek non-traditional methods of healing?
Oh, wow. Okay. So here we go. I moved to a very small Mediterranean island when I was 22. I'm from Canada, but I decided to move to the island of Cyprus because I thought it would be fun. I literally had nothing really planned. I knew I had a job waiting for me. I didn't really know like anything about teaching, but I got a random call in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, would you like to come and teach at our school?" I never asked what the salary was. I didn't figure out where I was going to live. 22, you just get on a plane because it's going to be fun. So moved there when I was 22. I got married. I had 2 children. And when I was 33, one night as I was going to bed, I sat on my bed like everyone does. And I thought, I'm going to read. This is prior to, internet and our phones being on all the time. As soon as I laid back in bed, all of a sudden, my entire body felt like it was collapsing. I felt like I was being crushed. And it was like there were 2 cement walls closing in on me. I sat up quickly and my right arm went numb. And then I realized, I think this is a heart attack. I remember reading things about, something like this happening. I shouted to my husband. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And by the time he got to the room, my chest just started aching. And I could feel like something is wrong. Then I started losing my breath. And I remember, we had the 2 small kids. And at the time we had a lady living with us who would watch them during the day. I told him to go tell her that we need to go. I crawled down the stairs. I crawled to the car. By this point, I couldn't stand anymore. He put me in his car. We lived in the countryside in Cyprus. So there was no ambulance coming to save me.
Wow.
It was never happening. So he put me in his car and we started driving. And typically it's about a 15-minute drive to the hospital. He was going so fast that we got there in 8. But on the way there, I remember looking at him and I could feel my body I knew I was dying. And I looked at him and I said, "I think I'm going." He said, "No, you're not going anywhere." And I said, "No, I feel like I'm dying." Now, here's where the most fascinating things started happening in this story. So we pull up to this private hospital, which had a very good reputation, which just so happened to be the closest hospital to us. When we pulled up into the front, the only doctor on duty that night was the head cardiologist, and he happened to be standing in the driveway. So they pull me up and my husband said, "I think she's having a heart attack." And he said, okay, he got the gurney. He started working on me immediately, gave me different kinds of things. He said, "She's having a massive heart attack. We need to stabilize her." And I was awake. Most people will go unconscious when they're having a massive heart attack. I was awake the whole time. So I was conscious. I knew everything that was going on. They managed to stabilize me for about an hour, moved me to another room, and then I had another heart attack. And so this went on for 5 days. I've had every symptom of a heart attack. They can occur from different places in the body, and I've had them occur in every place, in the stomach, in the arm, in the chest. I've had them everywhere. So here's where things get a little bit interesting. The surgeon came in at the end of the week, and he came to my bedside and he said, listen, Katharine, we can't stabilize you. We've given you everything. And he said, if we can't get you stabilized, I can't do an angiogram to find out what's wrong. And he said, I worry that you will not make it past the weekend. And he said, I don't know what else to tell you. And he walked out. And I remember lying on that bed. I was in a 4-story hospital looking out the window. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it doesn't end here. It can't end here. I haven't done anything. I've got 2 small children. What have I done at 33? And I remember I just started praying, like, please, just let me get through this. Interestingly enough, it was the first time that I had 24 hours without any symptom of a heart attack. So on Sunday night, they put me for an angiogram. The doctor realized I had 4 arteries blocked, and he decided that he would do a triple bypass surgery and hope that the 4th artery would open on its own. And all of the clots were at the entrance to my heart. And that's why I kept having heart attacks.
So when you say having heart attacks from different areas of your body, what does that mean?
So there are different symptoms of a heart attack. Most women will have symptoms as a backache, which is where mine started.
Oh, symptoms. Okay.
Symptoms, yes. So women will have it starting in the back. Men tend to have it starting in their chest. When a heart attack is coming on, it can actually start as stomach pain, high stomach pain. It can also start like the veins in your right arm are it's like someone's twisting them. So I've had all these different symptoms, which typically a person gets one time, but I would have them every day, starting in different parts of my body because all the arteries, the 4 arteries were blocked. So now here's where, to me, my second miracle comes in. So I'm lying in the ICU. It's 3:00 in the morning, Monday morning, right? I've done the angiogram. They know I have to get into surgery quickly. Doctor walks into ICU and he said to me, we have a problem. We are overbooked for surgeries today. And I was in a room, it looked like barracks, where there were 4 beds on the one side and 4 across from me. 3 beds down from me was an older man. He was in his 70s, and he not only needed to have heart surgery, but he was also on dialysis. So as he hears, and everyone's basically kind of awake in the middle of the night because it's just not a great, situation to be in. This man puts his hand up and he calls in Greek. He calls him to the doctor. He said, doctor, come over here. And so the doctor walked over. He said, I want you to put her in my place tomorrow morning. And if I last, I'll be okay when you can get to me. And that's what happened. They put me in his place so that I could be worked on first. So it was a long surgery, and I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. So there's a long recovery when you have open heart surgery because they actually they take the heart out, they put it back in, they've re-bypassed arteries, and then they kind of restart you. So you don't actually walk. You have to get up and try walking again and the whole thing. So I was released, and there's no rehab. There wasn't rehab 18 years ago in Cyprus. So they basically send you home with a bag of medicine and say, take these, but it's likely because you're a woman, this will all happen again in 5 years' time because the surgery won't hold up. And that's how I was sent home. I was home for 1 week and my right arm went numb and I was having a stroke. So my husband rushed me back in again. Luckily, I didn't have any long-lasting effects, but they did up my medication and they tripled almost everything. So I was on about 12 different medications at the highest dosage, including 500 milligrams of aspirin. Like most people take 81 milligrams. I was on 500. So it's, it is an amazing situation to be in at 33 with two small children.
Did you have health complications prior to this?
As you see me now, and the audience can hear me and see me, is how I was. I was teaching 2 different jobs. I had been teaching that night at my house tutoring. There was nothing wrong with me.
Nothing. Wow.
Nothing. And my blood tests coming back while I was in the hospital were all clear. So I have found out now, after many years of research, what it is that happened. It's actually something called SCAD, a spontaneous combustion of the arteries. The artery in my neck spontaneously combusted and started all of the blood clots moving as fast as they could to my heart.
Wow. Did you ever reconnect with the man that gave you his place?
No, I didn't. I think at that point, you're in so much trauma, and I was on such high doses of morphine while I was in there because of the pain that reality doesn't really comprehend for many months, because it is traumatic, very traumatic, because I didn't even know what bypass surgery was until 6 months after I had been home, and I looked it up on YouTube, which had just come on the market in where I was living. And I typed in bypass surgery, and I was shocked that they had done this. I also didn't know that I had metal left in me, which I still have, holding my rib cage together. I mean, the whole thing was very traumatic.
So not to shift subjects, but I'm just curious, why Cyprus of all the places in the world where you could have moved?
So my father is Cypriot, and I have relatives there.
Okay.
But because my mother is Irish and I lived in Canada, I never learned Greek. And I really didn't see the relatives there very often. So it was a new experience. It was really still, meeting people very much for the first time and not really knowing them very well.
So the question, and we got, this is incredible. Your story is incredible. What about that led you to seek non-traditional methods of healing?
So this is where I have this huge curiosity where if I don't hear something that sounds logical, I'm going to keep looking until I hear something that sounds logical. So here's what happened when they give you a bag of medicine and you're not technically sick, and they put you in the category of a 75-year-old man who has bypass surgery. They give you cholesterol medicine. They give you blood pressure medicine. They give you all this medicine, but I didn't have high blood pressure. So the blood pressure medicine would make me faint every day.
Oof.
Because it was dropping it so low that I couldn't stand up. So then they would tell me, well, take this medicine to counteract that medicine. And so they would just keep giving me more and more. And I was so sick. I was bloating because all of them were counteracting. I was hallucinating at night because they were counteracting each other. And after 2 years of this, I continually visited new cardiologists. And I kept telling them in broken English or broken Greek and English, this doesn't make sense. My blood tests show that I'm not sick. But they said, no, you've had heart surgery, so you have to be on these medicines. So after 2.5 years of that, we decided that we were going to move back to Canada because we thought, even the health system may be more helpful. It might be a better way of life. It might be more healthy. We moved back to Canada and I continued my search. So I started again with the cardiologists in Canada and I went to one and he said, no, I think you need to be on it. And I said, this doesn't make sense. So I went to the next one. It took me 3 years, but I finally found the head of cardiology at one of our best hospitals in Toronto. And I said, here is my CD from my operation. Here is all the medicine I've been on. Here are my blood tests for the last 5 years. Why do I have to take all this medicine? And he looked at me and he did tests and he said, you absolutely shouldn't be on any of this because I can see you're doing well. I can see you're healthy. I see a few things that I would like fixed. So he said, what have you been doing that you are this healthy being presented to me after this many years? He said, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to do another angiogram. I'd like to do another ultrasound to see how your heart is. When he did that, I remember you're awake when you have an angiogram done. So he said, do you know that all of the arteries have opened? He said, I don't know what you've been doing over the last 4 years, but all of the arteries are open. When I do the ultrasound, it looks like you've never had a heart attack.
Wow.
He said, I don't know what's happened, but whatever you're doing, keep doing and do it even more.
And what were you doing?
So in my research of over those years, I decided that medicine was making me more sick. So how do I counteract that? I actually started emailing famous doctors. So here's where it gets funny. I emailed Dr. Oz, of all people, because he was famous back when this happened. And I couldn't get in touch with him. But then I found out his father-in-law is a very famous cardiologist in New York. So I emailed him and he actually emailed me back. So I gave him my entire diagnosis. I gave him all the medicine I was on. I've never actually told this story before, but I gave it all to him. And I said, if you can tell me anything to help me, I would be so grateful. I said, I'm in my 30s. I don't want to feel crappy like this. And he came back and said, I cannot diagnose you, but here's what I can do. I want you to read these 3 books. And after you read them, you will understand what you need to do. So one of the books was about the diet in Japan prior to Americanization of it. Another one was about healthy eating and dairy and why dairy isn't necessarily good for the heart. And another one was about the reversal of heart disease and how the stressors of the body and our mindset around that. So those 3 books were very fascinating because what it did is it opened up a door to something I hadn't thought of, that maybe I need to get my mind moving in a different direction. So rather than thinking, okay, I have this issue or I have a problem, what if I keep saying to myself, actually, you're overcoming it and we're going to make it even better. So walking every day. My diet changed to very little meat and beef. I kept a little bit of milk, but not a lot. I reduced most of the dairy that I was taking. And the stress levels, I had to cut by 75%. And most people say, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you just cut stress out of your life? And really, it's about reactions. And I found it interesting when I did your quiz, because a lot of the questions on the quiz that you sent me have to do with that, right? Like, do you judge people? And what is your experience if you're being criticized? I had to learn that, number one, who am I to judge anyone else? Right? Because everyone has been living their own journey and we all have our own experiences and our stories are as far as we know them today. So when someone asks me, well, what do you think of this? We have to understand that that person, my opinion is coming from everything I have experienced to today, but I don't know what you've experienced. So for me to pass criticism on you would be very unfair.
How can you judge another person when you don't know what they've gone through? That was a quote I heard recently. So the quiz that you're referring to, did you see your results?
I did.
Extreme self-love. So that's about 7% of the population, or at least the hundreds of people who have taken it. That's so interesting because when we talked off camera and I heard about your health problems, I immediately went to your childhood and thinking, oh my gosh, you had to have some stress. And while we didn't talk about that, now you're admitting like, oh my gosh, you did have stress, because most illness has a basis of stress, but you don't ever hear. Have you ever been to the doctor where the doctor said to you, hey, can you tell me about the stress that you're under? No, they never do. In Western medicine, at least, they want to diagnose you, label you, and then give you drugs like they did to you, this hodgepodge cocktail of drugs, right? So have you ever...
It's a Band-Aid, right? It's a Band-Aid. Pharmacy and drugs are a Band-Aid. They're just a blanket to cover the symptoms from popping up. It's like a garden. So you plant seeds. When those seeds start to sprout, imagine throwing a big blanket over them. They're still sprouting, but that blanket is covering them for a certain period of time until they keep growing and they will pop through that blanket. That is exactly what drugs do.
And that's the same with anxiety and depression.
Yes.
You can mask it with the drug, but it's still there. Have you ever, by the way, if you want to take the self-love quiz yourself, just go to unlocklimitlessyou.com and take the quiz. It's all over. If you have illness or you have depression or you have anxiety or you have a shitty marriage or weight problems or addiction, it can be shown in that self-love quiz result. So if you lack self-love or have mild self-love, don't say, woe is me. Think, oh my gosh, your life can improve that much better. Katharine, have you ever heard of the China study?
Yes, I have. I actually read upon it.
So it's the largest study ever undertaken, medical study, I think, in the history of the world, 30 years, I think. And they went to all the regions of China, and they found that the meat eating and the dairy consuming regions had heart disease and cancer rates off the chart.
So that is the book that Dr. Oz's father-in-law told me to read.
Oh my gosh. So and then there were still regions in China where it was mostly plant-based and no dairy. And their heart disease and cancer was like non-existent. So after reading that and watching some documentaries, I went meat-free for a year. I haven't drank a glass of milk in many, many years, but I want to get back. I need to get back to because I'm a believer that dairy and meat cause cancer and heart disease. So anyway, so you have shifting. That's incredible. So the last question, kind of on the health thing, is how have those multiple health crises like shifted your perspective on life and health?
First of all, I had to learn and teach myself because there weren't resources. There really weren't any while I was living in Europe. So how do you live this normal life when, first of all, they've basically given you like a stopwatch and told you in 5 years, this is likely going to happen again. So you start counting down. Is this today I'm going to have another heart attack? It is today the day. And I got so tired of that I told myself, okay, enough, right? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So you can either decide, and this is Katharine talking to Katharine now, you can either decide that you're going to be a victim and you're going to feel sorry for yourself that you've gone through all of these things, or you can use it as a catalyst to go and live differently, live the very best life that you can until whatever day that ends. And that's what I decided to do. So that's when the shift happened, when I no longer decided I was going to feel sorry for myself. There were no more pity parties being held through and as much as what I went through with triple bypass surgery was difficult, I would never take it back, ever, because it is what has led me to today. So the point is fear. Fear is completely made up in our minds. We create this scenario of the future of what we think is going to happen. Most likely it will not. I passed 5 years. I passed 10 years. I am now 18 years post-surgery when they told me in 5 years, first they told me I wouldn't make it by the weekend. Then they told me it would be 5 years. And here I am 18 years later. I'm still on no medication and the healthiest I have ever been in my life, even after paralysis from a vaccine, skin cancer. I'm still here.
Whoa. Well, you look closer to the 33 than you do the 51.
Oh, well, that's good.
So what do you do now to help people?
To me, what is most important, and it supersedes any business or relationship you will ever do, you need to get your mind, you need to get it in check. And what that means is, how do you respond to situations? Do you react or do you respond? Because so many people, and I've noticed, ever since COVID, people are very emotional. They react very emotionally, very quickly. And a lot of that is fear-based. Typically, we react emotionally when we are scared of something. And sometimes we don't even realize what that is. I actually got through COVID and our lockdown in Canada went on for about 2.5 years. I actually thrived because I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to be home and I can do all these things. I did not see it because I've already been through hell and back. This did not seem like a really difficult time. I was, because I was in real estate at the time, I was masking up and I was putting gloves on and I was showing homes with masks. I looked like almost a hazmat suit, but I was one of the few out there working when I probably shouldn't have with all of my past health issues. But to me, this is not the worst that a person can go through. So I was able to get through it.
And you coach people now, right? You coach high entrepreneurs and on mindset
and leaders. I coach them on their mindset of performance. So what's holding you back? I coach them on strategies to help move them forward. Basically, what I love to do is I love to move people from here to there. So where is there? Is it a happier life? Is it higher performance? Is it better in business? Whatever that is, I will help you to move along the way a little faster than it should normally take you.
That's awesome. So tell us about this amazing book that you wrote.
So I wrote a book on AI because I love AI and technology. Interestingly enough, when I was on my hospital bed in Cyprus, recovering from triple bypass surgery, my husband brought me an envelope, which was my master's degree, which had arrived in the mail. So that's how I received my master's degree while lying in the bed recovering from triple bypass. I had been working on it for 3 years, and it was in educational technology. So back in 2005, I created an online program to see, my whole dissertation was, do people learn better online than they do offline, for example, in a textbook? And in fact, they do. Our minds work at a higher efficiency rate when we are learning online as opposed to reading from a textbook, no matter what type of learning disability. So that I found very interesting. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's interesting.
It really was. So I have this, 100-page dissertation all about that learning and how that happens. So over the years, technology has always interested me, but we all have to make a paycheck. So I continued teaching in the normal ways that we teach. There were blackboards, then there were whiteboards, then they became smart boards because I've been teaching and guiding people for 30 years. When I decided that I was going to go into coaching, it was about 7 years ago. And what I realized is adults are just the grown-up version of these kids that I taught or the university students that I taught. They're no different. Everyone needs guidance. So at what point in our lives did we think that we need to stop having guidance to help us move forward? At some point, an adult said, well, I already know how to do this, or I'll figure it out. The problem is that our experience stops. We have an end to it, and we can't get further than that in life. You get to the point where you're making $100,000 or $200,000. The problem is that you will plateau there because your experience can only take you that far. So what I realized with AI is so many entrepreneurs and leaders are doing so many tedious tasks that take up so much time in their day. Well, what if you could get that time back? What if AI could take over so many of those tasks and actually give you back the time to be with your family, to go and do what you love, or to actually level up your education so now you can move to the next level in your business or actually make another 100,000? This fascinated me, so I started researching, and I wrote a book called AI Secrets for Business Success and Life Hacks. And I will always mix business with health because the two are intertwined. Because if you go all in on your business, you are likely putting your health and your well-being aside. And if you go all in on health and well-being, part of your business is being held back. So what I show people is how to keep both of them intertwined so that you can really do well, but also have a really beautiful life.
So where can people reach you?
My website is the best place, and social media, and both of them are the same. So Katharine Loucaidou coaching.com, and on Instagram, Facebook, Katharine Loucaidou Coaching.
And we'll put those in the show notes. So I want you to end now by teasing this major launch that you've got coming in another couple days. So this second podcast will be out in Tuesday of next week. I don't know the date off my head. Whatever you're listening to, just make sure you listen to the next episode. What are we going to talk about? Don't give it away all, but just tell us this life-changing, whatever you call it, that you're launching.
Okay. I have created something that less than 20 people in the world have created. And I have taken 30 years of my experience and failures and wins and mindsets, all of it, business, health, wellness, strategies, everything. And I've put it in a place that will be accessible to everyone, everywhere, for less than the cost of a dinner per month.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to say. But it will be life-changing, because I think that if people had the mentorship and guidance that they had earlier in life, now some people may not have gone through school with good experiences, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to remember your favorite teacher out there, whoever that was. Whatever made them so special to you, I want you to imagine that that's coming next week. Your favorite teacher is coming back next week to help you through the rest of your life.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you, Katharine. We'll see you on the next episode. I cannot wait. I've got so many great questions for you that the audience is just going to be
excited.
Hopefully enamored by. So that concludes another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Remember, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people, and I can't do it alone. So if you're listening to this and you get value out of it, please share it, comment, rate it, whatever you can do to get the word out to help me on my mission. And until next time, love heals all.
Thank you.
Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more life-changing content. And if you're struggling, you don't have to. Go to bradchandler.com/contact. There, you can join the Facebook community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and you'll see a button to schedule your freedom and happiness call. See you on the next episode.